Raging Review.
The Raging Cajuns will be a source of pride for this university, for the alumni, fans, and donors as we achieve success in the classroom, in the competitive arena, and in the community.
It's about to get really fun.
We're looking for dudes that will stand up. Well, Coach, let me tell you today, I'm here and I'm ready to stand up. And I challenge you, Raging Cajun Nation, to stand up with us. Stand up with us. Let's lock hand in hand and let's walk through the gates of Omaha.
Hey, I love y'all boys. Let's grind every day starting today. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Oh, Lord. Ready. Who's that team ready? Who's that team ready? Yes, sir.
I got one thing to say right here. Cajuns win!
Ladies, gentlemen, what's up? What's up? Welcome to another edition of the Raging Review podcast. I'm Gerry, joined by Nick. Got lots to talk about tonight. Cajuns victorious over the Grambling Tigers this past Saturday to kick off the 2024 football season. Final score 40-10, Louisiana 1-0. This week they'll travel to Georgia to take on the Owls of Kennesaw State, new members of FBS and Conference USA. We also have a special guest from Kennesaw State representing the Owl Nation from the Owl Chat podcast, Mr. Kai Millette. He'll talk a little bit about what the Owls bring to the table, what can the Cajuns expect to see in Georgia this weekend, and we got lots more. We'll also review the Grambling win, and we'll talk about some Cajuns volleyball and Cajun soccer. Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Excited to be back. Saturday night was fun running that a little bit solo, but got some great content and great comments from all of our fans who were staying up late listening to the end of that game. So all in all, it was a lot of fun, and looking forward to what should be a very competitive game against Kennesaw State. Looking forward to talking to Kai. You know, we don't know a whole lot about Kennesaw State. Just because the first year FBS, and I think they've only had a program for a total of 9 years, so they're relatively new. But in that short time span, they had some really good winning seasons. So looking forward to learning more about them and predicting what might happen next week.
You know, it's amazing. We've seen a lot of that. A lot of football programs or universities that have started football programs pretty quickly and then jump up to the FBS level. South Alabama would be a prime example. Coastal Carolina was around about 20 or so years with their football program. They're now in our conference as well. I mean, you've seen that quite more often than not lately. Kennesaw State's been an interesting one because, like you said, just 10 years ago, they didn't even have a football team. And now they're an FBS member, the newest member of FBS, now officially playing in Conference USA. And the thing is, they've had such quick success. It's very rare that you have a program that starts up and you win as much as they have over the last decade. So very interesting story there. And of course, Kai can probably explain more to us about that. But yeah, it's an interesting matchup for us. I say it's the perfect trap game for us. I know the Owls are going to be, or the Owl fans are going to be on cloud nine, having their first official home game as an FBS member. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to kind of dissecting what to expect this weekend. Other than that, Nick, I got to give you a shout out. Well done on the post game the other day. Thank you so much for covering. You did a fantastic job. And thanks to all our callers and listeners that chimed in after the game. Kind of kicked off our official season 7 when we have our post game. So we look forward to bringing that to you guys, the fans, hopefully every weekend following occasion, hopefully occasion victory.
And you know, we always get Terry in the space, but nice to hear another Tyler was in the space as well, former Raging Cajuns players, saying how much they loved. They couldn't talk to us while they were players last year, but now they can. So
yes, they can.
Cool to have them on. And no, it was a lot of fun. And they honestly, without them, it would have been pretty boring. So thank you to all those who chimed in.
For sure, no doubt about it. So Nick, let's we're going to rehash the Grambling win. We have a short clip that Nick put together that'll kind of summarize everyone's thoughts with the 40-10 victory over the Grambling Tigers the other night. So Nick, go ahead and And as Boo Boo Broussard would say, and roll that action.
To get the 40-10 win tonight, didn't rain, students showed up, fans showed up. That was a good night. Love it. All right, Catherine, what's going on?
And I got something to say. So first of all, we weren't even going to go to the game tonight, but we decided against my better judgment to go, try to get in, and they tell me that we cannot go in because my wallet, which by the way, I've had the same wallet for the last 6 years, is too big. The lady took my wallet out and said, "Oh, this is too big, you can't go in." And I said, "You're kidding." So at the very same time that this happened, there was a couple next to us who had the same thing happen to them.
Football player, by the way, from 2006.
And they were like, she was so mad and was telling everybody going in, "Oh, you can't go in. Be sure to take out your wallets before you try to go into the game." What an absolute disaster. Because I don't remember reading anything that said that you can't bring wallets into games.
Yeah.
But once we got in the game, we had a nice time. It felt important because half the stadium was packed, And let me say this. The amount of food options was better than it has been since Hudspeth. Really good.
That's awesome.
I think that actually the atmosphere in the stadium, if you were there, I think that most people came away with a positive experience. The positive takeaways are offense looked great, special teams looks good, defense looks really deep and fast, very fast. But I think overall, there's a lot of things to be worried. Look, Tulane's coming to town. They've got a real squad. I think that we have the talent on this roster to compete, and I think the difference is going to be on the sidelines.
Man, I am a former player for the past 5 years. Last season was my last. I've been tuning in ever since I've been in college and listening to y'all over the past 5 years, man. From my take, I do see improvement in the offense. The offense actually looks like we have a scheme this year versus the previous 2 years. Defense looks very fast. I could say that. I feel like we always did play fast and all, but I feel like the defensive scheme this year is improved than the past 2 years because I done played and, going from playing under, Morgan or whatnot and seeing them how they playing now, they look a lot more freer, a lot more faster. They ain't thinking as much. I feel like we got a good season ahead of us, man.
I mean, I thought the atmosphere was great. It was fun. I mean, the students, man, shout out to the student section. They showed up and showed out, had their hard hats on, going crazy in the corner end zone. I mean, the crowds, you just saw a ton of fans there tonight. You beat Kennesaw State, you're 2-0, you get a bye, and you rest up for Tulane, which in my opinion, I think the crowd should be better against Tulane. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff just like it was tonight. If the weather's good and you're 2-0, that could probably be one of the most anticipated home games in a long time, man.
And there you have it, guys. Wow, Nick, job well done on the highlight reel. And we look forward to playing that for you every week to review.
I didn't say that. You're not committing me to more stuff I got to do.
You're going to anyway. You love it. Don't lie. But no, that was a great clip, Nick. And you got to hear just kind of a review of the post game that we do. As you can tell, you heard me, other fans chiming in, as well as Nick's 2 cents. So hopefully we have another good post game this weekend. But before we do, we have to play the game first. And so we have joining us from the Isle Chat podcast and the editor of the KSU Sentinel, Mr. Kai Millette. Kai, thank you so much for joining us. How are you tonight, my friend?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me, fellas. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's talk a little bit about the Kennesaw State Owl football program first. Before we talk about the team, I'm just kind of curious. So, as Nick and I talked about, Kennesaw State started their football program a little over a decade ago. I believe it was 2013. And during that run, they've been on a roll up until maybe the last couple seasons. I mean, they've had some double-digit wins. They've gone as far as the FCS quarterfinals. They've really, really have hit the ground running, going from 0 to 60 pretty quickly since starting their football program. What, in your opinion, what has attributed to that fast start and fast success from them basically starting from nothing to now taking on an FBS school like the Louisiana Raging Cajuns at the FBS level?
Sure. So I think it's a couple of things. Number one, we've had the right people in place. Like you said, program started in 2013. We started playing games in 2015, and we've had the same head coach our entire history as a program. He spent time, Coach Brian Bohannon, a lot of time under Coach Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech, big time triple option disciple. And when you're in the state of Georgia and there's so much talent just right in your backyard, it's easy to pick up those scraps from Georgia Tech, Georgia Southern, to fill out a pretty damn good FCS team who can just run the ball down people's throats. Things have changed. It's been sort of a down couple of years, like you guys said, but right before we joined FBS, or right after we joined FBS, the rule changed where the entry fee went from, I think, like $5,000 to $5 million. So it was kind of a now or never thing. And I think playing FBS football was always the goal, when the program started. So we've been lucky with, a good recruiting base, a really solid, consistent head coach. And yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
So one of the things I was curious about now, one thing that's very unique about Kennesaw State football is you play in a minor league soccer stadium. It's interesting because you don't really see that too often these days, right? A lot of times they're either just regular on-campus stadiums. But talk a little bit about that. You play in, it's called the Fifth World Stadium. And Fifth Third. I'm sorry, I misread it. Fifth Third Stadium. And it opened in May of 2010. And it's been there's a private-public partnership between Kennesaw State and the Atlanta beat of the Women's Professional Soccer League, which they officially don't exist anymore. Talk a little bit about that facility. I know we have some Cajun fans traveling this weekend. They're excited about it. I'm curious on how Kennesaw State was able to kind of create that partnership with a minor league, basically a minor league team to use as a not only a soccer field, but a football facility as well.
Sure. So soccer is actually pretty big in the state of Georgia. We've got a lot of great youth soccer, academy soccer here. And then, obviously Atlanta United came around, 7 or 8 years ago. And that's only continued to grow. But there's always been a good soccer culture here. So I definitely wasn't a surprise when it was put together and built. And I think that way before 2013, the idea of a Kennesaw State program was in people's minds. And I think that probably played into it being built in Kennesaw. And now, like you said, the women's team doesn't exist anymore, but Atlanta United 2, which is the minor league affiliate of our MLS team, Atlanta United, shares it with us. But just about the stadium, it's real small. It is the smallest stadium in FBS, and I don't think it's particularly close. Capacity says it's like 10,200, but that was changed like last year. There's probably 8,600 seats is I think the number, and they're able to cram 10,000 in there, I guess. And we started seeing some changes in attendance reports and figures last year. I don't know how legitimate all of it was. We sold out some games that didn't look very sold out, but the department's kind of doing whatever they can to display the attention that our program has. One nice thing about it that I think your fans who are traveling will be excited to hear is it's 90% seats with backs. So you don't have to go sit in the bleacher. You're gonna be able to sit comfortably in the stadium, and there's no bad seat in the house. Because it's so small. It's great seats everywhere. It's small. It's intimate. It's homey. Kind of sucks that it's off campus, but I can't complain. It's about 1,000 feet from my apartment, so it's in a good location for me. Sports park, the facilities are great, and we often joke about how our women's soccer program probably thinks that they have some of the best facilities in the country, while the football team it's kind of the opposite of that. So I love it. We actually had the guy who helped fund and design it on our podcast several months ago, and he told us like it's built to expand to 22,000 if we ever had that much attention. But we are far, far from that.
That was actually my next question, because obviously, you come in FBS, a 10,000 seat stadium is fairly small. But at the same time, one thing that's been intriguing to me about Kennesaw State is the fact that they've made such a fast jump, and they've not only made a fast jump in football, they've shown success elsewhere. I mean, baseball, we have a rich baseball tradition down here at Louisiana, and seeing what Kennesaw State has been able to do over the last decade in baseball has been nothing short of impressive. I find that Kennesaw, Georgia in general, is it one of those towns that just keeps growing and growing? Is there a certain industry there that has allowed that type of success or financial success to come to a school like Kennesaw State to be able to grow the athletic program? Is it the rich alumni? Because I mean, I'm intrigued by the fast growth of Kennesaw State's athletic program. I mean, it has been very interesting to see, and kind of wonder, like, how did they get to this point so quickly? Jumping from NAIA to Division II, all the way up to Division I and at the FBS level in football in a span of what, maybe 2.5 decades at most?
Yeah. So not only is it, a growing athletic program, it's a growing school. It's a very young school. We've only been around since 1963, and we've only been a 4-year university since the 90s. As far as rich alumni go, that's probably our biggest weakness, because a lot of our successful alumni, are very young, and we don't have those 70-year-old billionaires giving us a ton of money. I mean, we've got a couple, and it's there. As far as the town goes, it's grown with the school. I would say that the industry is really the school. I mean, it's an old Civil War railroad town. So there have been people here that have been here, for generations and generations. And all of a sudden, over the last 10 years, the school goes from, or 15 years, school goes from a school of 18, 20,000 kids to 50,000. And now, the largest enrollment in the state of Georgia. So there's a lot of people coming in. There's a lot of attention coming in. You could say a lot of money coming in. I mean, with the way Georgia's college system works, tuition is not that expensive. So, do it that way you will. But it's hard for me to call it an up and coming town, because I don't think Kennesaw will ever be like a big time city. I mean, we're not only are we 30 minutes from Atlanta, but we're 10 minutes from Marietta, which is, a suburb town with 100,000 plus people, in its general area. So it would be hard for me to see Kennesaw really, really grow to that point. But it's starting to really embrace that it's becoming more of a college town. I mean, you see the KSU brandings everywhere downtown, and the athletics have played a big role in that. I'm glad you guys brought up baseball. That's been sort of our flagship program since we've joined D1. We've consistently been successful, pride ourselves on being like a developmental program. We're not going to take in a ton of transfers or have a ton of kids transfer out. We put kids in the bigs that, didn't have the numbers coming out of high school to go to Power 4, Power 5 schools. And it's been really successful. Basketball was a total disaster from 2004 till 3 years ago when we went to the NCAA tournament for the first ever time. So that program's totally turned itself around. Football, like you said, it's been brief, but it's been very successful, and it's been really good for the school.
So, question about the program, and you mentioned recruiting earlier. I noticed Coach Bohannon had a ton of red shirts last year, right? And those players are starting this year, so it's going to take you guys probably a couple of games. And you saw that in the first game, a lot of silly penalties, learning how to play together. Where do a lot of these recruits come from? Did they come from FBS ranks, or where did he primarily recruit? I'm assuming in the state of Georgia, but what type of guys was Coach Bohannon looking to recruit in his first season in FBS?
So this past offseason, like you said, last year we played kind of a BS schedule. We only played 9 games. We were an FCS independent because we sort of got the boot from the ASUN, which was our previous conference, because they're like, okay, you guys are leaving. We're not going to help you guys out. So all of our best players only played 4 games last year. There was no continuity. I mean, the offensive line looked completely different every game. There were all sorts of nightmares that we had to deal with. And then this offseason, we beefed up by getting a couple of FBS guys. We got a kid named Donovan Westmoreland, who was a 4-star who spent some time at South Carolina. He was the highest rated recruit we've ever had in our program. Unfortunately, he's hurt and he's out for the year. But other than that, there's a handful of FBS guys out there. We went and got a lot of junior college guys from those big JUCO states, the Iowas, the Kansases of the world. There's a couple of those guys on either sides of the line. And then we got a couple of FCS guys who were just kind of looking to make that jump. But, I mean, a lot of the guys we got playing right now, were contributors last year who were only able to play 4 games last year to preserve, that extra year of eligibility. So I like what we did going out and getting the JUCO guys because, honestly, Kennesaw State's kind of a hard sell right now. And we went and sought out guys who wanted that FBS opportunity, which is exactly the way I think we should have done it.
Yeah, before we go back to you, Gerry, we got to ask the question of the day. Are you Kai the hitchhiker of axe-wielding fame? I would say that is a hard no, but I'll let you go ahead and answer that for our watcher.
Yeah, no, fortunately it's a no, but you guys are probably the 20th people to ask me that question. I get that all the time. I don't know if your listeners or viewers can see it, but I've got the hair for it. I've got the name.
I think that's what did it, man. I think honestly it's the name and the hair. That's what did it.
I haven't killed anybody though, so we're good there.
Kai, I have to ask, man, and of course, again, this is Kennesaw State's first official year as a FBS Conference USA member. 2-part question there as far as CUSA membership. From your personal opinion, did you ever see that happening? Was that something that was in the works for a long time, or was that something that kind of came up at the last minute for Conference USA to extend the invite? And also, too, being a younger university, being a younger athletic program, what was the reaction of the overall fan base, or how does the overall fan base feel about making this jump to Conference USA? Because believe it or not, there are some schools out there that are FCS or at a lower level that maybe don't want to make the jump. There's some schools out there that could make the jump, but they say, you know what, we're happy where we are. Kennesaw State made the jump, and Kennesaw State said, you know what, we're going to take a chance. So was it a well reception from your fan base on that? And also what led to that whole process into them jumping into Conference USA?
Right. So I'm actually still a student here. And, prior to attending, I followed because I'm a geek and I follow everything, college football and basketball. So I was aware of Kennesaw State, but I wasn't necessarily a fan. I do know that was sort of the intention from the very beginning to end up, playing, big time football. Hell, when we started the program, we jokingly wrote a letter to the Big 12 asking what it would take, to earn membership. And they wrote us back, so I was told, and gave us an actual step-by-step guide of what it would take. So that's kind of a funny story. But from what I've heard from my co-host on our podcast, John, it was kind of known maybe a year or two in advance before the announcement was made. And like I said earlier in the show, it was sort of a now or never thing because it was right before the NCAA, greatly raised the entry fee. So it's okay, well, if we're going to do this, we got to do this now. And luckily, CUSA was there to take us after they lost a couple schools. But the general reaction has been nothing but positive. Students are really excited. You hear fans and players and recruits say over and over again that it's you see teams like Louisiana or Louisiana Tech or, a UTEP, Jacksonville State on the schedule, Middle Tennessee, that changes things. Those are recognizable names. We're not playing Furman in our biggest game of the year anymore. So students are excited. We were very excited. We know it's a process. Our expectations aren't very high, and it's going to take a couple of years. But with the success and stability that we've had in our first 10 years, I would say that long-term optimism is relatively high.
So let me ask you this. Okay, so you brought up how you're excited about the schedule and the opponents. What is the overall vibe on campus this week since the Cajuns are coming to town?
After the UTSA game last week, a lot more optimistic than we would have been had it gone differently. We're still, I think, trying to get general student engagement up. We want to be able to, pack out our student section. And the plan is for that to come with getting these games on the schedule. But we're really excited for this one. I think it's going to be a good crowd. We always have good crowds at our first home games. I mean, we sold out a game, against the D2 opponent last year to open the season. And I think having that Louisiana name is turning some more heads and being like, oh shit, maybe for some of the casual students to see a name that they recognize rather than a Tennessee Tech or a Samford to open up the year like we've had in years prior. It's less of a student congregational event and more of a, hey, we're playing legit football now. Like there's a better reason to go watch.
Yeah, I was going to say that because, I think anytime you have a team, and first of all, that's very complimentary to us because whenever we hear like, hey man, you guys, the fact that you're on our schedule and we want to put more emphasis on this game and showing up because, Louisiana, I mean, that means the world to us for you to even say that. But I find that like, especially like in Kennesaw, I'm curious. A town like Kennesaw, like you said, it's like kind of a railroad town, but it's also growing, being kind of a suburb of Atlanta. Do you feel like the community has embraced the university as far as like the fan base and things like that? Like, do you get a lot of locals that go to your games and go like show support? They wear their black and gold around town?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you go downtown, which is a couple minutes from campus, and every restaurant, every brewery, every store has a Kennesaw State flag. I think they really appreciate the attention and the brand it's built for the town of Kennesaw. Because, like I said, it's not a big town. We've got maybe 40,000 people, and it is slowly growing. But not only that, but the county, Cobb County, which is like the northernmost county in the metro Atlanta area. There's a bunch of these small to medium-sized kind of suburb towns, and like the local paper, the Marietta Daily Journal, who I write for, covers everything KSU. So like the attention is dispersed pretty well, and they do embrace the team. However, I think that can only continue to grow. The toughest challenge we face is at least a lot of the Kennesaw State fans are also Georgia fans or Georgia Tech fans. So when we play them, or when we play at the same time they play on Saturdays, we're fighting for them or fighting with them for viewers and for attendance. And the good thing about Conference USA is like 4 or 5 games out of our schedule now we're playing in the middle of the week, so we don't have to conflict with them. And also, with the jump, it legitimizes us. We're now technically on the same tier at least, so people have more of a reason to be invested. And it's not just kind of like, oh, your side FCS team, while you watch every Georgia game every Saturday.
So who's the big rival for Kennesaw State in the state of Georgia? Who's y'all's arch nemesis?
That's sort of a difficult question. For years and years, it was Mercer, which is an FCS school down in Macon, but they're scared to play us in football. Haven't played us in football a whole lot, but we would play them in basketball, soccer, baseball every single year. And the last 2 years or so, they've started slowly dropping off those schedules, which is a little disappointing. But that's opened up more of a rivalry with Georgia State, who's right down the road in Atlanta. We played them in football when we were FCS and they were FBS, and we took them down to the wire and probably should have had them. And now we're playing them in basketball and baseball every year. Their fans like to talk a lot. You guys are in the Sun Belt. You're familiar with Georgia State. I'm sure you're familiar with some of the Twitter heads.
Yes,
it's kind of surprising.
We know them pretty well. We know them very well.
You wouldn't expect a team of their or a school of their pedigree, I guess, to talk as much as they do. But we're all for that. We like rivalries. We like having fun, and
we do.
At least so far, we've been pretty successful against them.
Their baseball team plays on a little league field, so they really don't have room to talk. And they were just a few years ago, they were dropping money from the top of the dome in Atlanta.
I remember that.
Whatever. Yeah, they don't have any room to talk to. By the way, totally off subject before you go back to Gerry. You mentioned you did some writing in Marietta. Are you familiar with the name David Friedlander?
It sounds familiar, but not right off the
Okay.
top of my head.
All right, I'll cut this from the episode. He was he writes. I think he covers Georgia State. He wrote in Marietta, Georgia for a while. He was a former beat writer for UL and the Louisiana Ice Gators hockey team way back in the day. So just was wondering if you knew Dave. Sorry, Gerry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's totally fine with me. Hey, it's free reign here, Nick. It's all good. We might even talk Falcons Saints before it's all said.
No, we're not.
So, no, we're not.
Don't want to start that, man.
Anyway, so let's get into it. Let's talk. So now that we've learned a lot about Kennesaw State and Kennesaw State football, let's talk about the game this weekend. So as you mentioned, surprisingly, actually, there seemed to be a lot of optimism from your fans after the game against UTSA. And I say surprisingly because, I guess maybe from our point of view, if we would have played like that, I know there would have been a lot of upset fans. But for Kennesaw State, you guys are still growing. You guys are still trying to figure things out, and it's your first time around. And really, I'm gonna be honest with you, I thought Kennesaw State played pretty well against a really good UTSA team. And not only did they play well, they didn't quit. I thought that was very, very, very noticeable. I mean, when it was 21-3, in a position like the Owls, as kind of getting started in the FBS, trying to learn a lot, and in a situation like that, in a hostile environment, most teams would have probably given up 3 more scores or 4 more scores.
Yeah, I'm glad you took it back, Gerry, because you said we would be upset if we played like they did. No, we wouldn't, because they played their hearts out. And look, Kai, I think you'll say you guys are undersized. I mean, you're still undersized for an FBS team. However, you can't measure grit, and the speed you guys have at every position really showed itself later in the game, because you guys, when you started bringing pressure on that quarterback from UTSA, they did not know what to do. Your Mike linebacker was free to run at the quarterback the entire game, and they did nothing to prevent it. So, Gerry, you're off the hook now because you took it back.
Well, but no, I'm not talking about in the situation of where Kennesaw State is at, right? I mean, the Owls, this is their first game as an FBS member. I'm talking about where we are now.
I get it.
If we played if we would have played like that last week, to where we are now, I would have been upset about that. But to my point about what I said at the end, to your point, Kai, I mean, that was a great effort for your first FBS debut on the road. I mean, that, to be honest with you, it's like in the first half, I'm watching it and I'm like, maybe we might not have some trouble with them next week. We should be okay. And then I see y'all fight back in the second half, and I'm like, yeah, no, we can't overlook this team. Cannot take advantage of this team at all, because they will. I mean, they'll give us a run for our money if we do that.
Right. I mean, the whole mantra of the program is our little slogan, EAT, which stands for effort, attitude, and toughness. And arguably our most famous alumni currently is Bronson Rechsteiner, currently known as Braun Breaker. He's, one of the biggest wrestlers in the world now, and he's kind of brought that out, the EAT slogan in WWE. So that's gotten us some good publicity, but it's all about, being gritty. And heading into the UTSA game, all off season, we're looking at the schedule and we're like, that's one of the best teams in the group of 5. We might be in for a long one. We could have lost that game 49-10. And we'd be disappointed. You never like to lose, but not surprised. It would have kind of just been, how we expect to play things out. And then game starts, we go down 21-3, like you said. We look severely undersized on both sides of the ball. And we were all just kind of thinking like, this is still sort of an FCS roster, and it's going to be a long year, but nothing we didn't really expect. And then, we start fighting back, and they surprised, I think, even the most pessimistic fans. They, like you said, they didn't give up. They stayed in that game. Then we started getting pressure on the quarterback, and the whole thing changed. Our defensive line did a solid job, especially in the second half, of stopping the run, which is something I didn't expect to see. And then offensively, once we sort of got into our groove, we started moving the football with a quarterback who is very, very raw and has, little to no playing experience at all, and a tight end room that has only existed for 2 years. This is only our second year, with a tight end on the roster, and they're all either former offensive linemen or, oversized receivers that have been, pushed into that role. So nothing but optimism. It was probably the best I've felt after a loss in a long, long time. We were kind of just like, hey, we might not be as bad as we anticipated.
And I think when you, in a year like this, where it's a transition year, where you know you're not going bowling, I think you have, I mean, what do you have to lose? You know,
Right.
you leave everything out on the field. So I think that's dangerous for any team you face for the rest of the season. You mentioned that the quarterback. Let's talk about your offensive scheme. Interesting. At times it looks like a read option. There's this weird option sweep that you guys do. I think we want to get you guys in 3rd and long situations and test the arm and your wide receivers, but it was difficult to kind of understand really what your offensive philosophy was that first game. Tell us a little bit about historically what the program has run. Has it been a triple option? Has it been a primarily run pass and then pass? What do you guys expect through the rest of the season, and what do you think we should expect next week?
It's for the first 8 years of the program, it was a very pure triple option offense. I mean, we're talking throwing the ball 3 to 6 times a game, that kind of thing, only when, you know, you're absolutely in a position to. And it was just run the ball down your throat, you know, pound, pound, pound. And then the NCAA comes in, makes a couple of rule changes about cut blocks and whatnot. And the triple option is, you know, more or less left to die, and we got to move on. But, you know, our head coach is a triple option disciple. So he brings in Chris Klonakis last year as our offensive coordinator, and it's this big name, and it's how he's worked with Lamar Jackson, Colin Kaepernick, you know, all of these guys. And we see some flashes of it last year. And then he jumps ship and, you know, takes a job on the offensive staff at Vanderbilt. And now the OC we got in is actually a former triple option quarterback, Chandler Burks, probably the best quarterback in our school's history. So he's getting the opportunity to call the plays. And like I said, you can't run the triple option like you used to, but you still see a lot of elements of it. You still see a lot of read option, a lot of run pass option, like you said, a lot of trickery. Like one of you guys said earlier in the show, there's a lot of speed on this offense. We've got, you know, a handful of real playmakers, and it's just about getting them the ball in space and seeing what they can do. Our quarterback is raw. He only appeared in 2 or 3 games last year, and his arm didn't look great. So the fact that he was able to complete 14 of 28 passes for 200 yards, we were impressed. We weren't blown away. You know, it wasn't a spectacular game from him, but it was better than we expected, given what we saw from him last year.
Yeah, and I think that the thing I wouldn't necessarily be worried about his arm next week, because the passes he was hitting, I think, I mean, he did connect on a few nice passes, but there was a lot of blown coverage. Let's talk about that. But he did connect on some passes when he needed to convert a couple of times. The thing I would be more concerned about is looking at his stats: 62 rushing yards, a net loss of 41. You know, you can be an option team, but you still got to hand off the ball every now and again. You can't be stopped for 41 yards. So I think I would look for him to be told the same thing. Hey, hand off the ball sometime, right? You got other guys behind you that can gain some yards. So I look for that to be a threat more this week. And again, what worries me is the fact that we had a lot of missed tackles last week in our game against Grambling. And now we're facing a triple option / you know, maybe we're not going to play an option offense / he can kind of throw the ball. So it worries me that you've got a lot of slippery guys. And like I said, a little bit undersized, but really, really quick. We're going to have some sure tackling this week to be able to compete with you guys. That worries me a little bit.
Yeah, running between the tackles is going to be tough because we're, you know, so undersized. And I think that's why you didn't see as much of it. And to be honest, the rushing production, like you said last week, was pretty disappointing. I think we averaged under 3 yards per carry, and obviously sacks are factored into that. And Bryson was running for his life half of those plays. But we've got some solid players in the backfield. Quay Ashley's the guy who kind of came out of nowhere, won the starting job this offseason over Michael Benefield, who was one of our studs last year. He was one of our best players the back half of the season. And then we've got some other guys who haven't seen the field yet, and we're kind of hoping that's just a rhythm thing, you know, getting these top 2 guys, you know, in the field that we need them to be in. But there's options in the backfield. It's a matter of run blocking on the offensive line. But I mean, it's the key to our success is just getting the ball in space, and that's hard to do between the tackles when you have such a small O-line.
And when you have such a good defense like UTSA, I mean, they were one of the top in the country last year, so that's understandable. Before I flip it back to you, Gerry, I have one last question for you. Let's talk about special teams, man. Where the hell did y'all get that punter from, and where can we find one? Look, I was impressed by the kicker, the place kicker, because he hadn't kicked I think one field goal in college. That was his first kick, and he did a hell of a job. That punter was absolutely ridiculous. Assuming that surprised you guys, and I think it even might have surprised Bohannon a little bit. What do you think?
Oh yeah, you guys did your research. I respect it. So last year we went 6 of 16 on place kicks. It was a total disaster. We couldn't hit, the broadside of a barn. We couldn't hit anything. It lost us 2 or 3 games last year, just not hitting place kicks. It was an absolute disaster. We bring in 2 kids. One of them hadn't played Division I since 2021. He was a JUCO guy, and he's kicking off now. And then the other guy, Austin Welch, we brought over from Eastern Kentucky, and he hasn't, attempted a place kick since high school. He comes in on that first drive and nails one from 48, and we're losing our minds. And then he hits 2 more, and we're like, what did we find? So it's led to all sorts of speculation and funny theories about how, maybe when we played Eastern Kentucky 2 years ago at their place that, we saw him in warmups and we're like, hey, if he ever leaves school, let's give him a call. But it came out of nowhere. And it's honestly the best thing we saw all of last Saturday. As far as the punting situation goes, there's an interesting story there. We've got 2 punters on the roster, Josh Hewitt and Jacob Ulrich. Both of them were on the team last year. Hewitt started and did a really solid job. He was one of the better punters in FCS. He was as consistent as it gets. 0 complaints with him. But Ulrich was a second scholarship punter who we gave some NIL money. And we're like, okay, so this guy's got to be legit. But coming in, we're like, okay, they're going to give it to Hewitt because he's got the seniority and he was a starter last year. And, Ulrich will be happy to sit behind. Depth chart comes out and Ulrich's the number 1 guy. And then, just casually breaks the school record for punt yard average in a game. He hits like a 59-yarder, and we're like, okay. So, I guess the other guy's not injured. This guy just beat him out in practice and is really that good. So special teams were the number 1 best takeaway from last week. We talked in the offseason. We're like, look, if this administration starts going downhill, it's because they're not able to fix the special teams issue. And it seems thus far like that's been addressed pretty well.
All right. I told you I was going to go back to you, Gerry, but I'll figure something out here. So listening to your podcast this week, I thought it was interesting. At the very end, you guys gave your predictions. 4 very confident we're going to beat Louisiana this week. So I would love to hear, Kai, what makes you guys so confident in beating the Raging Cajuns? Now, I get it. I think you guys should have confidence because it's your first FBS home game. It's a big deal. Your crowd's going to be pumped up. Your team's going to be pumped up. A lot of excitement, a lot of adrenaline flowing. So I'm asking this not to be sarcastic, but is that from the heart or is that from the head? Have you guys done any film study on us? Do you know a lot about our program this year, or is it just like after last week, we're going to kick these guys' ass?
And it's funny, real quickly before you go, that was actually perfect, Nick, because that's what I was going to ask, your keys to victory. So apparently y'all have the keys to victory. Let's hear it. How are the Owls going to beat the Cajuns this weekend, or what would it take to be victorious on Saturday?
Look, it's definitely a little bit of drinking the Kool-Aid and us kind of just being drunk on optimism and then being rewarded in the first game. And it was like, oh shoot, we're not as bad as we thought we were going to be. It's less about Louisiana being the opponent and more about the situation. It's like, okay, the players played well enough last week to, keep that belief and confidence and feel like they belong. And we get Louisiana coming in who, just based off last year's results, wasn't a bad team, but you guys, win 6 or 7 games last year, right? And it's like, okay, if there's going to be an upset, in the non-conference, it's probably not going to be when we go fly out to San Jose State. It's going to be at home. We expect to have a really good crowd. It's a big moment for the university, And I think we're going to have guys treat it like it's their Super Bowl. So if there's an upset in the schedule, at least the non-conference schedule, we feel like it's going to be this one. Now, I said on the show we recorded today, I'm like, look, Louisiana is going to be a big favorite against us, and there's going to be a reason for that. Like on paper, 1,000%, you guys have better size, better skill positions, I'm sure. Your quarterback had a fantastic game against Grambling. I guess he's a seventh-year senior. Is that correct? From what I was reading,
I think he's 46 this year. So yeah, he's like, no, I'm kidding. But yeah, he's been here a while.
Just a little trivia for you, Kai. So our quarterback basically backed up Jake Hayner at Fresno State, and they basically fought for the first string or for the starting job. And when Jake Hayner got the starting job, that's when Ben came to UL, and now Jake Hayner is in his second year as a backup quarterback for the Saints.
And could beat the first teams.
And probably could be the starter. Just to give you an idea of how long it's been, So we definitely have a veteran quarterback.
Yeah. Well, so he's got to be savvy. He's been around the game a long time. I'll be honest, it's definitely a bit of homerism, and it's a bit of a gut feeling like, okay, if this looks like a trap game for them, emotions are going to be running high for us. This is going to be a go out and put it all on the line in front of a full stadium. In your first FBS home game, it's going to be the most attention we've gotten to this point. That'll hopefully increase later in the season when we've got some nationally televised games, but we've got some eyeballs on us, and if we can, it's all anecdotal, but it's like if we can show the same grit that we showed in the UTSA game, I think we got a chance to hang. And when we make those predictions, it's kind of just like, okay, if there's going to be one, it's going to be this one. We're all KSU fans, so we're gonna pick the Owls to take this one home and show some confidence in them.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Look, let me tell you, we've done it too. We do it all the time, and I'm gonna just say, it's funny you mentioned trap game for us. Look, Nick and I have been screaming from when we saw the schedule that Kennesaw State is the ultimate trap game for us, because like you said, this is your first official FBS home game. You're playing your first ever FBS opponent at home. I kind of wish it wasn't us, honestly. I kind of wish it would have been somebody else,
Kai,
just for that reason.
If you knew, brother, it's called CDS, Cajun Disaster Syndrome.
We're always a first for everybody.
But Western Kentucky went on like a 30-game lose streak when they came to FBS, and guess who was the first team they beat? Us. We lost to North freaking Alabama,
a Division II school.
Yeah. So this, trust me when I tell you, we are going to respect you guys going into this week. There's no disrespect. We 100,000% expect it to be a dogfight.
Nick, just last year in the bowl game, Jacksonville State, first year in the FBS, they weren't even qualified to make the bowl game because they're in a transitional year. But they weren't even qualified to make it due to a transitional year because of the shortage of bowl teams. They get in. We gave them their first win. So, yes, we are the masters of firsts. Hopefully that doesn't happen this Saturday, because if you want to see a total meltdown of a fan base, just listen to
our post game.
Oh, our post game.
Hop on our post game.
If you guys pull off the win on Saturday, you want to hear all hell break loose, just tune in. Heck, you could call in.
Come on. Join us.
Yeah, come celebrate.
On the flip side of that, if you tune into our post game, we're going to be like, well, we tried. That's kind of the energy this season. I mean, we don't want to go 2-10, but if that happens, can't say that we're all that surprised. But we're going to beat somebody that we're not supposed to beat this year. That's just how college football works. And we've got a chance to lose to the FCS team we play, who we're supposed to beat. That's just how these things works. I'm glad you brought up Jacksonville State. We talked about rivals earlier a bit, and you only asked about in-state, but those are the guys that we can't stand. We hate the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, the boys out west, like with a passion, and it's a truly legit rivalry. So we'll try and get them back for you this year.
Just so you know, we hate Louisiana Tech. They're just a bunch of a-holes. LSU, call them TSAB. They love that. We hate LSU fans. And we have a growing disdain for Southern Miss, because when they win, you have like a billion Southern Miss fans, and when they lose, you can't find one anywhere.
So we're going to talk about that after the comment.
Do we have to?
Made. Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Oh yes. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about. So Kai, before we let you go, and thank you so much for spending your time with us, and we really appreciate you kind of educating us on Kennesaw State football. But I did want to ask, so like I mentioned earlier, a lot of our fans, or quite a few of our fans, will be making the trip up to Kennesaw, Georgia this weekend to watch the Cajuns take on the Owls. What are some hot spots in Kennesaw that they can go check out maybe on Friday night, restaurants, bars, cool, tourist attractions? What are some cool places around Kennesaw where our fans can go mingle and meet the local crew?
Go hang out downtown. Downtown's a great spot. It's really classy. It's really clean. It's on the railroad. There's good energy. Tons of good, breweries out there. The most popular one being Horned Owl Brewery, right downtown. But lots of good spots over there. Several good Mexican restaurants. There's a barbecue place down there. I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but good stuff downtown. And then over by campus, there's a little area over where I live that's got a few of those bigger chain restaurants. Like you got a Taco Mac down there, and there's a Tin Lizzie's, and then obviously we're 30 minutes outside of Atlanta, and there's a billion things to do over there. So, but yeah, I'd say go hang out downtown if you really want to get the Kennesaw experience. It's a quaint, nice place. It's really pleasant. Lots of breweries and good energy, good people.
And Kai, look, and I think we host you guys in 27, so you may be long gone from your duties there, or at least as a student. Hopefully, you graduate by 27. So we invite you to come down to Lafayette. You will have the best food that you've ever eaten in your entire life once you come down and tailgate with us. So that is your official invite to join us in a couple years. But before we let you go, Kai, let's do a word association. You ready?
Sure.
All right. First thing that comes to mind when I say these things: state of Louisiana.
Tony Chachere's.
Gumbo.
Shrimp.
The city of Lafayette.
Lafayette, Georgia.
Lafayette. That's
Lafayette.
We have a different pronunciation.
Interesting.
And I learned
Tomato,
recently
tomato.
that everybody calls it something else. But
I think they're putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable there, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. No, I believe you guys. Trust me. But
Okay.
we do have a town that's spelled the same way, and that's just what pops to mind first.
Gotcha. Mardi Gras.
Energy.
Boiled crawfish.
Ed Ogeron. Sorry.
That's a good one, man. That's a good one. He's been on our sidelines a couple times.
That's a good one, yeah.
Speaking of Ed Ogeron, LSU.
Joe Burrow.
Conference USA.
Middle Tennessee, weirdly enough.
Georgia Southern.
Nothing to do.
And Georgia State.
Don't get shot.
All right. Three more for you. Sun Belt Conference.
Better than it used to be.
Ragin' Cajuns football.
One of the best mascots in college sports.
Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? Just kidding, man. You don't have to answer that. Thank you.
Don't answer that.
Thank you again, man. Gerry, I'll let you close him out and find out where we can find more content from him at, right?
Yeah, no doubt. So again, Kai, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So yeah, like Nick said, tell the people where they can find you, where we can find your content, your podcast episodes, and all of the coverage for Kennesaw State Owl sports.
Yeah. So I, with my co-host John, run the Owl Chat podcast. We're not hard to find. We're the only ones doing it for Kennesaw State. You can follow that account on Twitter, Owl Chat podcast. Even if you're not a KSU fan, there's some great content on there. We have a guy we have just to run that account pretty much, and he does a fantastic job. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Kai Millette.
Very good. Very good. Kai, thank you so much for joining us tonight, my friend. And don't be a stranger. And look, again, the invitation's open in 27. Come down to Cajun Country, man. We'll treat you good. But hope to hear from you, win or lose. Win or lose, we hope to hear from you Saturday night on our post-game show, because win or lose, it's always a lot of fun if you want to come get some free entertainment from our fans.
Absolutely, yeah. If I can fly out to San Jose when we play San Jose State, I'm sure I can make it down to Louisiana. So I'll see you guys there. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Thanks, Kai.
Thank you, Kai. And there he goes, Mr. Kai Millette of the All Chat Podcast, also editor of the KSU Sentinel. And wow, a lot of great information there, Nick. I was very intrigued by all of the fun facts that KSU and KSU football has to offer. I was kind of surprised, though, that it seems like, and I say surprised loosely, but it's almost like their fans they're excited, but it's very new. The whole process of being in Division I or FBS as a Conference USA member, it's very new. And I feel like they're kind of this year, it's more of a, hey, we're excited to be here, but let's wait and see. It is a process. It's going to take a little while to really grow, but hey, we're here in Conference USA, and let's see where the dice roll.
Yeah, and you also have to take into account they had a couple of disappointing seasons. So, me as a football fan, they've only been in existence for 9 years. Good chance that they support another school somewhere in the state, maybe a Georgia Tech, maybe a Georgia. So this is probably, because it's so new to them, probably a second team for them to support. And trust me, we all know that problem. So building that team or the fan base from the ground up is difficult. It's not easy when you only been around for 9 years. And you've got an SEC team, right down the street in Atlanta, and you've got Georgia State there. And so I get the struggle, but look, all it takes is for them to get one upset against a team that they shouldn't beat to generate some excitement there. And hopefully, further down the line, they expand that stadium, because 10,000 fans ain't going to cut it in FBS, and, continue to build on what they've built on. And look, the reason that I did some homework on Kennesaw State was, one, I didn't know a whole lot about them, but two, they scared the crap out of me. We said that for a while. Kennesaw State, it's a trap game, but not only that, you've got a bunch of players that come from really good programs, both in JUCO, which we get some players from JUCO, and from because a lot of those players came from P4 programs. So next week is going to be, I'm going to be nervous going into the game. Now, if we're leading by 30 in the fourth quarter, I think I'll be okay at that point. But I just feel it's going to be closer than we anticipate. But Kai had some great information, some great insight. Very excited that we had him on the pod today, and just look forward to a great game this weekend. Much respect for that program. We know how hard it is to start from the ground up. Hell, we know how it is to have a program for 100 years and try to rebuild some of our fan base. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge for them. But like I said, all it takes is one upset of a big team for them to get on the map somewhere.
It's very, like I said, it's very impressive. It's very impressive that program has been able to grow as fast as they have. I mean, in baseball, like he talked about, their baseball program is sort of the pride and joy of the athletic program. And they started, I believe, in Division I baseball for since 2006?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty recent when you really think about it in the broad picture, right? And for them to have the type of success they've had in the postseason, I mean, I've seen a few of their regional appearances. I mean, they were in the Hattiesburg regional a couple of years ago, and they competed. I mean, they really competed. And so there's definitely a lot of talent out there in the state of Georgia and the surrounding areas that I think they've been able to take advantage of to bring in the caliber of athletes that they brought in those particular sports. But there's no question. I mean, for a team like that started their football program only 9 years ago, to be able to just jump up into Conference USA the way that they have, it's very impressive. And to your point, Nick, about the athletes that they brought in, look, there's athletes that have had experiences at other schools, but also too, when you make a jump that quick, you're kind of in a win now mode. So you're going to bring in a lot of veteran guys that can have or learn the experience a lot quicker than, say, if you were in the FCS level where you give yourself a few more years to adjust. They're at a level now that competes with the best of the best, where they know they have to win now. So I know for a fact that they went and get some guys that can play and really, really compete on a national stage. And that's why I think personally, that's why this game scares me, because you're going up against guys that like Kai said, look, we're just kind of at a wait and see game. But when you play it with a wait and see mindset, you're really playing with nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You're going in there. Yeah. I mean,
you're playing with house money, because you ain't
scary, man.
They're not going to a bowl game this year. They know that, right? They're not going to a bowl game this year. Now, we said that for Jacksonville State, and they beat us in the bowl game. But
right.
they're not in their minds right now. They're not playing for a bowl game. I think the one thing that that is definitely a drawback and a concern on their end is how many. And I get it. You're going to have your biggest improvement from week 1 to week 2. We say that every year with every team. But I just think you saw the number of penalties last week that they had against UTSA, and UTSA had a bunch of penalties too. So I don't know if it was that crew, but I think it's going to take more than 2 games for them really to hit their stride and get in the groove and learn the offense and defense and really be integrated into that system. So I think that's going to be key for this week is, did it only take 1 week for them to figure it all out? I don't think. And that's why I'm predicting, and we'll get to score predictions later. That's why I'm predicting a Cajuns win, is that I don't think that after 1 week in FBS against UTSA, where they had a decent performance, a lot of that performance, again, they had UTSA had points taken off the board because of penalties. It was a sloppy game. There were personal fouls all over the field. There was just a lot going on to contribute to that score looking a lot closer than it was. So I think that's the one thing they have going against them is they don't have the experience playing at the FBS level week in and week out. And they have so many new players. You redshirt a whole team for 1 year. You put them in the following year, there's going to be some growing pains. And I think that happens at the front end of the season rather than the end of the season. So am I concerned? Yes. I've listed the reasons why, but I still predict a Cajuns win this weekend.
Yeah. And also too, I mean, Nick, how many penalties did we have against Grambling? 1?
1 penalty for 5 yards.
That makes a huge difference. I mean,
but that's also small sample size, right? Because large sample size, we've been penalized a lot last few seasons. So I'm hoping that is a trend.
Right.
So I'm hopeful that is for more to come there. But you don't be blinded by the fact that we only had that the first game.
Well, that's a good start, though.
It's a good start, though.
Hell of a starting point.
I am happy with it. Yeah, I'm not complaining at all.
Now, if we go from 1 penalty last week to 11
then we have to have a conversation.
But it's a good start. And that's one of the things I was really impressed with in the Grambling win was we didn't commit any penalties. And, you know, even at the line of scrimmage, pre-snap penalties, no false starts, no crazy holds, nothing, no movement at the line. Those are the penalties that hold you back. You can extend a drive or an opponent's drive on defense when you do it, and you back yourself up when you do it offensively. And we really didn't do any of that. So I was very impressed there. That is a mark of a disciplined team so far. So if we can do that, that would really, really help us because I think this week, and we'll talk about keys to victory, but one of the biggest keys to me, Nick, beating this team at the line of scrimmage. That's where I think we really can dominate this week if we do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, and again, what I saw was a heavily penalized game last week, a lot of personal foul penalties. And if that, again, we only have 1 game to judge that on with Kennesaw State as well. But if that's the type of game that they play, getting into players' heads, we got to be disciplined. And so, just stay the course. Don't be stupid. Walk away and you'll be fine. But if we start, if that's the game, again, I don't know because I only have 1 game to really judge them on. But if that's how Kennesaw State plays, we can't be drawn into that. Otherwise, it's going to be one of those weird games that you just don't want to have when it's another team's first FBS game at home ever.
Very true. Very true. I think, and let's talk a little bit about Kennesaw State. I know we discussed it with Kai, but Nick, you had the chance to watch Kennesaw State play UTSA. I watched a little bit of the second half, and one thing that I found about them, like you said, they are a little undersized. They look kind of like an FCS team, even though they're transitioning right now. You could definitely tell the difference at the line of scrimmage. You can definitely tell the difference with their front seven compared to our front seven. But make no mistake about it, they are pretty athletic. They have good receivers. They're fast on the edge. But I think where we beat them in the trenches is we just outman them, and we have athleticism as well. I think in the game against UTSA that I was really impressed with, like I said, they not only didn't quit, but they really started to move the ball in the second half. And in an offense that's transitioning to an identity of nothing but triple option into sort of a read option, mixed
hybrid,
spread. to be able to transition into that in your first game, you could definitely tell they started getting more comfortable, whether it was Davis Bryson passing the ball in the first half, a few of their guys getting some rushes in the second half, opening some holes and being able to get some yardage. It would be like, okay, so you're an Acadiana alum. Just imagine Acadiana going from the veer to the spread.
And it will never happen.
It would never happen. But that's kind of, look, that's kind of what has happened with Kennesaw State. And because they kind of have to. So to see them adjust to that, I hope that that's something we can actually take advantage of, because it's still a learning curve for them there. I think it's still a learning curve for them offensively.
I think UTSA was gassed, if we're being honest, late third quarter into the fourth quarter, because I don't know that they were prepared for the offense that was thrown at them. I think you could tell that they were selling out for the run. And for the most part, guys, I mean, you look at the quarterback, he had 41 lost yards in rushing, but when he was able to connect on a pass, I mean, there was blown coverage all day long. And that wasn't gas players in the second half. That was the entire game. So I think we're going to look at that tape and hopefully, I mean, again, UTSA was one of the best defenses last year. That was last year. I think we're improved on defense this year. I think athletically we're better. I think we're better conditioned. We looked like we were faster, in my opinion, than last year. And we stayed with our assignments that last week against Grambling. And I think that's going to be so important this week, is that if you have a spy on the quarterback, he's got to do his job. If you have a Mike linebacker who's coming in for a blitz, he's got to do his job. If you've got guys who are playing man coverage, the defensive backs, they got to do their job. We can't have blown coverage, because what'll happen is this guy will get guys like Kai said. He's most successful when he gets guys in space, and UTSA had no answer for that, because I mean, at halftime, when you looked at the stats, it was like 68 passing yards for Kennesaw State versus 87 passing yards for UTSA. And the score was like 23-3 or 23-6. And you're like, what the heck happened here? Well, because they broke off big plays, Kennesaw State did, because of blown coverage. And because once they got guys in space, nobody could tackle. So I think the tackling part that we all talked about and all saw last week about guys not tackling can't happen this week. And there can not be any misassignments, especially when you're dealing with a team that can go from triple option to read option to jet sweep option. Oh, by the way, we're going to play option pass, right? Or excuse me, I said that wrong. But you know what I'm talking about. Like, you can go from passing to running the ball. It's just very confusing offense. Our guys have to stick with their assignments. And I think if we do that, we'll be fine. But we got to clean up some of those missed tackles from last week, because that is not going to be it's not going to be a good thing if we don't do that.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about keys to victory. Nick, what are your 3 keys to victory on Saturday against the Kennesaw State Owls?
Yeah. So, and Bryce mentioned this, that we had to limit our penalties. Not limiting penalties. With limiting, let me start again. As Bryce said, we got lucky last week because we had a couple of opportunities where the officials could have thrown flags for personal fouls. They did not. So the 1 for 5 was a little, I wouldn't say that was true, because we could have been flagged a few more times, but I conveniently left that out, but Bryce brought it up. So again, we have to limit those penalties. Can't get emotional. Can't make stupid mistakes. That's number 1 for me. Number 2, we got to dominate on the lines. Look, they're undersized, but they're quick. I saw a lot of UTSA absolutely getting destroyed on the blitz last week. I think we'll be better than that, because I think we're going to, I mean, how many times did I see the running back who's supposed to be a blocker just completely miss the block, right? And get to the quarterback. I think we'll be better there. But again, they're going to be bringing pressure. When they did, they were very successful. So we've really got to dominate on the lines. We got to hold our ground. And hopefully that opens up our running game, because that needs to improve. And then improved tackling is my 3rd one. That's a big one. Again, when you're playing a team like this, where you don't know what they're going to throw at you from down to down, you can't miss tackles, because when you do that, you end up like UTSA and allowing a 68-yard game when you could have stopped them behind the line of scrimmage. So to me, against a team like Kennesaw State, those are the three things you need to do. I think if we do all those three things and execute as we should in all three of those phases, I think we'll be good, because I think our offense, look, even if we don't run the ball effectively, and Kennesaw State may very well stack the box like they did against UTSA and like Grambling did against us. If that happens, I think Ben's going to eat him alive. So, it's going to be a little bit of a chess match at the beginning, but I think limit penalties, dominate the lines, improve tackling. You'll be good next week.
Good. No, good pointers. And my three, it's pretty similar to yours, except, I will say, yes, your second point is my first. Win the line of scrimmage. I mean, look, we're bigger, we're more athletic, we're stronger. Utilize that. Win at the line of scrimmage. That's how you wear them down. And I think that kind of opens up the opportunity on both sides of the football there, even in special teams as well. My second point is don't turn the ball over. Don't give them an opportunity to play off of that adrenaline that they're going to have on Saturday, being the first FBS home game for them. Don't give them any opportunity. Limit turnovers, win on field position. I think this is one of those games where we don't have to do anything grandiose. We just have to. This is one of those games where, even though I don't like to say it, I think you could just kind of dink and doink up the field and create some long touchdown drives and just score. This is not a game where we have to do too much trickery or anything like that. It's just move vertically up and down the field. Move vertically up and down the field with limit mistakes. My third point is to play good assignment football, especially defensively. Like we said, they have Kennesaw State has a quarterback that is dynamic. He's a dual threat. He can run, he can throw. I mean, you talked about not keeping their receivers on an island anywhere, or not trying to create opportunities for their receivers to create separation. Well, if you open up too many holes, he can run. He's going to create an opportunity to run. So I definitely think our defense has their homework cut out for them against a dual threat quarterback and a hybrid read option offense. So they're going to have to just follow their assignments and just play fundamental defensive football. If they do that and can limit them scoring and keep our offense on the field, that's where I think we'll have a good day. And
get them in third and long, because you get them in third and long and they're not very good. From one game this season, what we saw, third and long is their kryptonite. So if we can hold them on first and second down, get them in third and long, I think we'll be good. One thing I wanted to mention, and Bryce brought it up, is that we have two starters on the O-line. Jux Harrington is out this week. I think he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. So that is a big loss for us. But thankfully, I think we have enough depth at that position to be okay. But obviously, having Jax out for 4 to 6 weeks, that hurts. I mean, I don't care who you're playing. That stinks. So.
Man, that poor Jax can't get a break, man.
I know, man.
I feel for him, because this was a good year. This was an opportunity of a good year for him. Of course, Bryant Williams also will be out, but we expect him to be back next week. So look, I mean, we've talked about the offensive line depth. I mean, this is a good opportunity for some of our backup guys to come in and really shine. And you're going to need them towards the end of the year. We have a history of some guys on the O-line going down. So this might be a good opportunity in case, once conference really hits, where later in the season they could come in and be useful for us. So we'll see what happens there. And hopefully that doesn't affect our rushing attack too much, because we do need to, in order for us to win, we got to run the football. So definitely going to be a challenge this week. I know we're a 2-touchdown or a little bit over a 2-touchdown favorite. I don't take that into account. I think this is the perfect trap game for the Cajuns. And so they're going to have to show up and show out. I was glad that Coach Mike Desimo said what he said the other day about overlooking teams. Basically, he said, look, according to everybody else, we're still 6-7. We're a 6-7 football team. And if there's anybody in that facility that tends to overlook football teams, then, they're in the wrong place. I appreciate him saying that, because at least I know the approach of the coaching staff. They're going to tell those players this week, I don't care who we're playing this week. You got to go show up. No overlooking teams, no trying to think that because you've never heard of their name before that you're just going to walk in and win by 3 scores. We're going to have to play some good, physical, solid Raging Cajun football to win this game in Kennesaw, Georgia this weekend.
Totally agree with you. My favorite Dez is a pissed off Dez, so I liked what I saw out of him.
Well, every time there's a pissed off Des, it always turns out to be something good for us. So he needs to just be like that all year, right? So before we go into conference, or should I say Sun Belt Conference football scores and schedules, let's give our predictions for Saturday, Nick. Let's hear it. What do you think the final score will be between the Cajuns and the Owls?
Yeah, honestly, I think we pull away. I think we pull away early in the game, and then towards the mid third toward the end of the game, they score some points on us. So I think the final score will be 35-20 Louisiana. Definitely, well, I don't think we beat the spread this week. I just don't. I think Kennesaw State's going to be too jacked up.
Yeah, I think Kennesaw State's going to play a good game against us. I think it's going to be fairly back and forth early on. I think we pull away in the end. I just think we're just more physical than them. And I think probably a key turnover or a key play is going to sort of flip the script in our favor. But I do like the Cajuns victorious. I like a two-score game, but I don't think they beat the spread. I like the Cajuns 31-17.
There you go. I think I think this week will tell us a lot about this team because, again, this is the perfect trap game. Coming off a pretty easy win last week. So how do we respond to that? And then we have a bye week going into Tulane. So this is bigger than I think I anticipated it being probably when I looked at the schedule. But I think you got to go into that bye week 2-0 to have any momentum against Tulane.
Totally. That's to me, that winning this game is just as important as going into the bye with a 2-0 record against Tulane. And look, Tulane's next 2 weeks, they host Kansas State in New Orleans this weekend, and then they have to go to Oklahoma. So K-State and Oklahoma back-to-back, we get a win on the road with a bye. I mean, look, Tulane's going to have to grind the next 2 weeks before coming to Lafayette. So I hope that if we get this win, we can kind of sit back and enjoy ourselves while Tulane has to go try to beat the Sooners down in Norman. So
yeah, and Bryce, by the way, Bryce is telling me the spread is now down to 14.5. It was originally 15.5, so I would have been good in not beating the spread, but it sounds like hey, we might beat the spread with my prediction. Those things move. I don't know. I don't keep up with that. I can't bet in Texas. I have to drive to Louisiana to do the Caesars app. Sorry, Bryce, but thank you for letting me know.
Well, it has shrunk. I think it was like it opened up as 16 originally.
16, and then 15.5, and then
Yeah, so now Bryce says it's either or. It could be 14 or 15 depending on the book. But to your point, we're right where we predicted the scores is right around that sweet spot. So that's that. Look, sounds about right. So moving on, Sun Belt. Let's talk a little bit about the Sun Belt or around the Sun Belt. Some of the scores from Week 1, starting with last Thursday night. Coastal Carolina, big victory down in Jacksonville, Alabama. Coastal Carolina victorious over Jacksonville State by the score of 55-27. I believe it was like 48-13 at one time. I mean, it was a
ugly
blowout.
Yeah.
It was ugly. Chanticleers get a huge win to start the season. ULM victorious over Jackson State Thursday night at Malone Stadium by the score of 30-14. Surprisingly, it was a 4-point spread. I was kind of shocked by that, considering the fact that they were playing an FCS team, but the Warhawks were able to pull away. It was actually pretty close. I believe sometime early in the second half, it was 14-14.
Shoot, it was 14-14, I think, going into the fourth quarter. So they pulled away late.
Yes. So they were able to pull away and get a pretty convincing win. And that was Coach Bryant Vincent's debut as ULM head coach. So Coach Vincent gets his first win as the Warhawks head man. Saturday, App State took care of FCS opponent East Tennessee State 38-10 in Boone. Boise State and Georgia Southern, a complete shootout down in Statesboro. Boise State Broncos defeat Georgia Southern in front of a sellout Paulson Stadium by the score of 56-45.
Didn't see that coming, by the way.
No,
I thought Boise State would blow them out, but that was impressive showing by Georgia Southern. Better than I thought.
Very much so. Very respectable. I'm sure the Georgia Southern fans aren't happy about it, but at the same time, it's respectable. South Carolina gets a not a last second win, but a very close win against the Monarchs of Old Dominion down in Columbia, South Carolina. I got to give props to Old Dominion. That was a hell of an effort by the Monarchs. It was actually, I think it was 16-all at one point, either at halftime or in the third quarter. The Monarchs gave them all they could. South Carolina came out on top at the end again, 23-19. North Texas victorious over South Alabama, Major Applewhite's debut as the South Alabama Jaguar head coach. North Texas victorious over the Jaguars by the score of 52-38.
Come on, man.
No. Marshall had no problem with FCS opponent Stony Brook down in Huntington. The Thundering Herd victorious by the score of 45-3. Arkansas State, very controversial call to end the game. Arkansas State taking on Central Arkansas, a team who they have lost to in the past down in Jonesboro. A last-second touchdown puts the Red Wolves over Central Arkansas by the score of 34-31. And ironically, the Sun Belt Conference came out with a statement just the other day, basically saying that was not a touchdown. So, Nick, that's interesting, man. That's crazy that they admitted it. They admitted, hey, that shouldn't have been a touchdown.
A perfect example of Sun Belt Saturday nights, man. I tell you, not shocked, but I'm speechless. I really was when I read that. And the fact that Arkansas State was even in that position to where they should have lost the game against Central Arkansas is embarrassing. So not only was it embarrassing the fact that they should have lost, it was embarrassing that Sun Belt officials had to make the wrong call for them to win. All in all, it's bad optics for not only Arkansas State, but for the Sun Belt. That was just embarrassing. I want to know what action is going to be taken against that crew. That's really what I want to know. I want to hear Keith Gill come out and tell us what's going to happen to that officiating crew, because that can't happen.
But it's one too many times that has happened. And that's the frustrating thing about it. This isn't the first time where we've had stories like this where, you have a one bad call and it just flips the entire game. And like in baseball, for example, how many times has a Sun Belt come out in baseball?
And I was going to say, it's the same crap with not having 4 umpires at a baseball game. If we want to be a big time conference, then be a big time conference. But you can't have Mickey Mouse officials and nickel and dime everything like we do. We got to be better there, man. And Keith Gill needs to be at the front of it and coming out. And I'm not saying sending out a nice little letter like he did. He needs to be on camera saying what is going to happen to those officials. Because I tell you, who was the guy before? Gosh, I can't remember his name. Came from the WAC. You remember?
Carl Benson.
Carl Benson. Carl Benson would come out and say, hey, this officiating crew in baseball was wrong on their call. We had a couple times with Coach Robichaux came out and said, we're suspending this crew for the next series. And I thought that was appropriate, but he did not hide behind a press release. He came out and said it. I need that from Keith Gill. I've not seen a lot of leadership when it comes to this kind of stuff from him. So I'm going to criticize the commission, say you need to be in front of this because this is awful. And I'm thankful that this hasn't been plastered all over ESPN. I mean, it might have been I have DirecTV, so I don't have ESPN right now. But hopefully I haven't seen for online any real poor optics as a conference. But as soon as ESPN gets, look at College Game Day Saturday. They may be talking about this and how terrible does it make the conference look. He needs to get ahead of this. I'm sorry. We need to do something about this.
Yeah, somebody needs to be reprimanded. That's pretty straightforward. Somebody has to be reprimanded because you in a crucial call like that, you just can't make that. You just can't make that mistake. Plain and simple. Just can't make that mistake. Anyways, moving on. Nevada, the Wolfpack traveled to Troy, the defending Sun Belt Conference, 2-time defending Sun Belt Conference champions, and defeated the Trojans down at Movie Gallery Stadium still.
Well, Movie Gallery is like 20 years ago.
Like 20 years ago. That's what it was before. But anyway, that's all I remembered it as. But Nevada Wolfpack defeated the Troy Trojans by the score of 28-26. Georgia Tech, Georgia State, the battle for Atlanta. Georgia Tech victorious over Georgia State by the score of 35-12. JMU traveled to Charlotte, defeated the Charlotte 49ers by the score of 30-7. Of course, the Louisiana Raging Cajuns victorious over Grambling by the score of 40-10. Texas State, the Sun Belt West favorites, had a shootout against the Lamar Cardinals. Final score, Texas State 34-27. I was actually kind of surprised by that score.
Yeah, and Mr. Cash asked, have we talked about Texas State versus UTSA? No, and I don't know that we have a lot to say other than the fact that they barely got by Lamar is a bit concerning, but it is typical of Texas State football because every year for the last couple of years, it's been Texas State's going to run the West, and Texas State severely disappoints. So if I'm being honest, I'm not expecting a whole lot out of them this week, but I think the Texas State versus UTSA game, I don't know if it might not be an early game, but if it is, I would want to tune in because I would want to see not only Texas State, but also I want to see UTSA. And what if last week was a trend? Like, are they good or are they not good? Like that, and what did Kennesaw State really play last week? But Texas State versus UTSA, I think is going to be very telling for Texas State because they're supposed to be kings of the West this year. And so far, I ain't that impressed, Gerry. I'm sorry.
We're going to find out this weekend because I believe UTSA travels to San Marcos. We'll talk about that in a second as well. And I don't know if Texas State has beaten UTSA yet, actually. So I know a lot of Bobcat fans have that game circled. They're ready to go, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And so, of course, Mr. Cash says, we also had 160 yards of penalties, and they subbed McLeod out after 2 drives for the backup just to see. Well, we made that. We've done that before.
Yeah, we have done that before.
We've done that before.
But I think Mr. Cash, assuming he's a Texas State fan, you guys have a lot to prove because again, you were crowned last year and severely disappointed. And I get it. You have a new quarterback, Finley, right? TJ Finley, is he?
No, he's at Western Kentucky now.
Oh, he moved to Western Kentucky. They've got the new quarterback this year.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. Really good quarterback, but they still have a lot to prove. I'm still not sold on Texas State. Not saying that they're not going to be a tough game later, but I'm still not sold. They got to show me something this weekend.
If they beat UTSA this weekend, I'll be impressed.
Yeah, I'll be like, all right, they're here.
Yeah. But they have to beat UTSA and look, beat them for the conference. I'm not saying that you got to beat them for the conference, man. This whole back and forth between the Sun Belt and the American. It's real. I'm always disappointed in South Alabama losing to North Texas the other day.
Yeah, that was unnecessary. But of course, last time we played North Texas, they kicked our butts, which was again disappointing. Jordan McLeod, that's his name. Thank you, Mr. Cash. I appreciate it. Great quarterback, by the way, but he's still got something to prove. Do that this weekend. Beat him, please, for me.
For the Sun Belt, for us, yes. Anyway, and last but not least, Kentucky victorious over Southern Miss by the score of 31-0. Game ended with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter due to a lightning delay. And I wanted to wait to talk about this because in the Sun Belt, what was it, like the Sun Belt Zoom calls that they have weekly, Coach Will Hall made an interesting comment about that game. He basically said, so for those who don't know, and of course, Rage and Review commented on it because we were kind of shocked that he was saying out loud. They had asked him about playing Kentucky or the game itself and what you thought of it and how you prepared. And he basically said, look, we're going to collect the paycheck. We're going to play Kentucky to collect the money and collect the paycheck. In other words, we're going to sacrifice getting beat because it pays the bills. And, look, I get that schools have to do that. But at the same time, number one, you're playing Kentucky. Okay. Now don't get me wrong. We know Kentucky football has improved drastically over the last decade or so, but it's still Kentucky. You're not going to Tuscaloosa to take on the Alabama Crimson Tide. And to say that for a program like Southern Miss that has a rich history, for your football coach to openly say, we're basically going to sacrifice ourselves to get paid by a mediocre, or should I say top middle SEC school. What does that tell your players that you recruited, man? What does that say to your players? It says, I have no faith in you guys. To me, that's what I got out of it, Nick.
What does it say to your fans, man?
And your fans?
We need the check. Are you kidding me? Like, we get that the check is nice, but if you notice, who's our check this year? Wake Forest. And is that even really a paycheck? Might be, but the point is,
we're going to win. We're going over there to win.
But we're going there to win. We're not going there to collect a check. And I guarantee you, if we lose to Wake Forest, Des ain't going to get in front of a camera and said, "Well, we had a delay, and we didn't have a nutrition station, and we were in a locker room with no TVs." I mean, come on, man. that was a poor, that was just a poor comment. I don't know what he was going for there, but it like you as a head coach a program, you can't say that, man.
And you know what's ironic about that, Nick? Southern Miss played Kentucky a while back, and they were down by like 4 scores and came back and beat them.
Richard just said that. Beat them a couple.
And so this is the same team that they came back down multiple scores to beat. And this year now it's just, well, we're going to be the sacrificial lamb against them. Again, you're trying to sell your program to players to come play for you. You're selling your program to a very rich fan base that is rich in history. And look, love them or hate them, they have a football tradition there. And you're basically saying, yeah, we're just going there to sacrifice ourselves to a school that, we beat a couple years ago. I mean, just imagine if Coach Des said that about like Iowa State, right? So we went and dominated Iowa State, and we go up to Ames and lose by 3 scores. And he goes, yeah, we're just going up there to collect the check. I'll tell you one thing, we would be livid if he said something like that. I remember even in 2007 when I was a student manager, we lost to McNeese that year. We were 3-9. I'll never forget at practice, Coach Bussell, Ricky Bussell, gave a pregame or pre-practice speech to the team before. It was like a Monday or Tuesday, and we were playing Tennessee that week. And that was when Tennessee they won the SEC East that year. Okay. They were a top 15 team. Philip Fulmer was still the coach. And Ricky Bussell basically told the team, he's like, I overheard Philip Fulmer tell, because we were their homecoming game. He goes, I overheard Philip Fulmer say to the booster club that we're going to put on a good show for y'all. He said, I found that out and it really upset me because we're not here to be entertainment to them. I'm going there to win. I'm going to Tennessee to win. We're collecting. Yes, I understand we may be collecting a check and all that, but I'm going to Tennessee to win. Now, this is a team at the time, we were like 1-7. Okay. We were terrible. And yet our head coach never said, oh yeah, we're just going to Tennessee to win. Just going to Tennessee to collect a check.
I want to beat you and I want to take your check. I want both of those things. I don't want to just take your check. I'm sorry. But the audacity of anyone related to any program coming out and saying, oh, well, we just got to take a check. That's unbelievable to me, man. And out of Will Hall, former coach, right? For us.
Offensive coordinator under HUD. Yeah.
That's disappointing. Like you can't, as the leader of a program, you got to be better with your comments. And that was just poor. And the fans are not happy about it. Trust me, he's getting lit up by his own people.
Well, I think, and also too, I talked to one of the Southern Miss diehards the other day, who I'm friends with, and he basically said, he goes, for him to say that, he's also 1-21 against teams with over 500, with a record over 500. So
I'm sure he'll beat us. We're probably the one. I
know, right? Why would you say that? So. And I'm saying all of this, not, look, we go back and forth with Southern Miss fans, but to those diehards that we go back and forth with, like, to me, that was just a slap in the face because
I feel you is what I'm saying. Man,
we feel you, but they're still there. They're still there talking trash. They're still there supporting their team. And basically you just kind of dumped on them by saying that, well, it doesn't matter about your support. It doesn't matter. We're just going to collect a check. How do you expect to sell tickets and sell your program with that message?
That's crazy. KSU fan here, long live legend, asked us, will KSU win more than 2 games this year? I think so, man. I really do like what I saw against UTSA. I'm looking at your schedule. I feel like you're going to beat UT Martin. I think you have a chance to beat Jacksonville State. I know you guys want to beat Jacksonville State, but look, UTEP is a possibility. Florida International. I'm not sold on Sam Houston yet. Please look for us, for Louisiana fans. Beat Louisiana Tech this year. Last game of the season. You guys take it. I think you guys have a chance to win more than 2 games this year. But I think you guys have to figure some things out, like any new program does in FBS. Look at James Madison, man. They came out and absolutely dominated in their first year. I'm not saying you guys are going to dominate, but I think you guys have a chance to make some noise this year. So yeah, I do think you're going to win more than 2 games.
Personally, I'm looking at 4 or 5 potential wins. On the schedule, and look, you may get lucky. Look, if you find a way to beat us, you beat us this weekend. I may change my opinion and say, you know what, you could be a damn bowl team for all we know. Even though you're not qualified, but no, look, I'll be able to answer that question after this weekend on what we see.
Yep.
Anyway,
agreed.
moving on. So again, we just reviewed the Sun Belt scores. Let's talk about the schedule this week for the Sun Belt Conference. Now, there's no Thursday games. It's all Saturday games. And first game will be at 11 a.m. Troy will travel to Memphis to take on the Memphis Tigers. It's going to be a tough matchup for Troy. And as we talked about, Nick, 3 o'clock kickoff in San Marcos. UTSA will travel to Texas State for a 3 o'clock kickoff. It'll be on ESPNU for anybody interested in watching some good Sun Belt football leading up to our kickoff, which will be at 6 o'clock. UTSA will take on Texas State at 3 in San Marcos. Marshall traveling to Blacksburg, Virginia to take on the Hokies of Virginia Tech. That is the return game. Of course, the Fighting Brent Pryce of Virginia Tech, Nick, former Raging Cajun defensive coordinator, now the head man for the Hokies. Of course, I'm sure they're going to be ready to assert some revenge on the Marshall Thundering Herd after last season's big upset win for Marshall.
And last week's terrible showing. Who did they play? They got obliterated last week.
Vanderbilt. They lost to Vandy in overtime.
Teams,
lost to Vandy. So, Virginia Tech would definitely want to redeem themselves after not only last week, but last year as well. South Alabama will travel to Ohio to take on the Bobcats. Kickoff at 5 o'clock down in Athens, Ohio. Old Dominion will host East Carolina, the Pirates of the American Conference, down in Virginia. Kickoff will be at 5 o'clock. Gardner-Webb will head over to JMU. Kickoff will be at 5 o'clock. Arkansas State will be hosting the Tulsa Golden Hurricane out of the American Conference down in Jonesboro. Kickoff will be at 6 o'clock. Georgia State will have their first home game. They'll host the Mocs, FCS Mocs of Chattanooga. Kickoff will be at 6 o'clock down in Atlanta. Brian Vincent taking on his former school, the UAB Blazers. The ULM Warhawks will host UAB at Malone Stadium at 6 o'clock for a 6 o'clock kickoff. Southern Miss will host Southeastern Louisiana. Kickoff will be at 6 o'clock down in Hattiesburg. William and Mary will travel to Coastal Carolina to take on the Chanticleers. Kickoff will be at 6 o'clock. Georgia Southern will travel to Nevada. They'll take on the Nevada Wolfpack. So Nevada will have 2 straight Sun Belt Conference opponents back-to-back. Georgia Southern will travel to Reno to take on the Wolfpack. Kickoff at 6 o'clock. And App State actually will be a good matchup. App State will go to Clemson. They'll take on the Clemson Tigers. Kickoff will be at 7 o'clock. And, of course, last but not least, the Louisiana Raging Cajuns will go to Kennesaw, Georgia to take on the Owls of Kennesaw State. Kickoff will be at 6 o'clock at Fifth World Stadium. Game will be televised on ESPN+. You can listen through radio on Hot 107.9, 103.3 The GOAT, as well as 1420 AM. Jay Walker, Cody Juno, and Dawson Isolo will be there on the call. Of course, Nick and I will be here after the game to hopefully discuss a win, because if it's going to be a loss, all hell will break loose and it'll be some entertaining bits. But let's hope it doesn't get that far. Let's hope we're chilling and enjoying a nice Cajun victory.
I agree.
So before we go, real quickly, let's kind of do a little review. Raging Cajun soccer, 4-0-2. So far, so good for Coach Chris McBride and the Lady Cajun soccer program. They got 2 nice wins against 2 in-state opponents. First, they played Northwestern State. They were victorious 1-0, and they took on Grambling on Sunday, victorious 2-0. So 2 shutout scores for the Cajuns. Job well done so far. They'll go to Rice to take on the Rice Owls tomorrow at 6 p.m. down in Houston before heading over to Baton Rouge to take on TSAB at 6 p.m. On Sunday evening. And Coach Christy Gray and the volleyball team, Raging Cajun Volleyball, just started off their season this past weekend in the Sawyer Camillo Classic down in Earl K. Long. They went 1-2 on the weekend with a loss to Jackson State, 3-1. They were victorious over Murray State by the score of 3-2 before falling to UT Arlington on Sunday by the score of 3-0. They'll travel to Houston for the Flo Hyman Classic. They'll travel on tomorrow night to take on the Houston Cougars, and that game will start at 7 o'clock. On Friday, they'll take on Northwestern State. That game will start at 4 before coming back to Earl K. Long on Tuesday to take on the Lady Cowgirls of McNeese. That game will start at 6 o'clock. So lots of Raging Cajun athletic events going on. We got football on Saturday. We got soccer tomorrow. We got volleyball tomorrow. So there's definitely, you will not be absent of Raging Cajun sports. And of course, for anybody wondering, please, if you have a chance, give to the Crew Along. Right now, of course, we talk about NIL all the time and how it's the name of the game. Any dollar, whether it's $1, $10, $100, or $1,000, that will definitely help for our student athletes. So please make sure to give to the Crew Along. Nick, tonight was fun.
Yeah, tonight was fun. I'm tired, man.
Me too.
It's been a week. It's been a short but long week at work, and it feels like even though we had Monday off, yesterday and today have been long. So ready to get this week over with, ready to get the games going on Saturday. And like you mentioned, I didn't realize that UTSA and Texas State played before us. So I'm excited to see that game because I want to see what UTSA brings, and definitely want to see Texas State. But ready for the weekend, ready for this game. It's football season, baby. Oh, by the way, who dat on Sunday? What the heck?
Hey, yeah, the Saints officially kick off against the Carolina Panthers on Sunday.
Where's my, hold on. Let me find, I've got my paper bag somewhere around here because I feel like we're going to need it this season, but
don't jinx it, man. Hey, look, I'm going to be honest with you, man. The team could either be really, really good or downright terrible.
This guy, stop being negative, Jerry. Stop being negative.
Guys. I'm sorry. I know. I need to stop. Now, let me ask you, are we having a watch party on Saturday or no watch party?
Saturday. No, I've not planned anything, but those things happen kind of, well, actually, so I'm going to brag a little bit. My man cave has a 90-inch, screen with a projector, but I did buy a new 77-inch OLED TV for my living room. So I'm ready to try it out. I'm able to sync both TVs just at the right time for games. So yeah, nothing planned, I will say, but if any Ragin' reviewers out there want to come over, I guess hit me up because Saturday is open, ready for a little party. Might have to, and look, if anybody comes, the only thing that you have to agree to is that you'll be on the pod after, because if you're going to come, you have to be on the post game.
You got to earn it. You got to earn the invite.
You got to
earn the invite. You got to earn it. So no, that's a good point. Yes, they got to. That is a good deal, Nick. Because you know what? That means some of them might not show up because they don't want to be on the pod.
Exactly. So easy day for me. I get to keep all the mac and cheese and brisket to myself.
There you go. So before we go, it looks like RC had a question for us about the Tulane tailgate. It's still ETA right now.
I'm still working things out. So here's the plan. If everything falls into place, my brother has an RV spot. He goes out there every game. My idea is to go out there. I got Elon's little satellite internet thing. If that comes in time, if everything works out, if all the stars align, I will be at Tulane for a pregame and postgame. So just, stay tuned. Maybe I'd love to have some guys come sit with me. I mean, I've got enough microphones. We've got enough cameras that can make this happen, but I will be out there, and it would be an adventure. I would say that that might have to be like an after dark, not after dark episode, but you know what? Screw it. Let's just make it happen, Jerry.
For sure. Well,
you're gonna have to let the reins go a little bit. Let me do my thing and have some fun.
No doubt about it. That would be a good time. If it works out, that'd be a great time. So anyway, guys, you know where to find us. Please like, subscribe. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, now TikTok. I know I've said TikTok, but more or less TikTok, Instagram. You can listen to us on Spotify as well as Apple iTunes. Nick and I will be back for the post-game Saturday night following the Louisiana Raging Cajuns football game against the Kennesaw State Owls. That's going to do it here for tonight. As always, I'm Gerry. That's Nick. In the words of the late, great Big Dave Thibodeau, bye! We out of here. We'll see you Saturday night for more Raging Review coverage. And as always, go Cajuns.